Hi, I went to the movies this week and saw Scream 7, the latest installment in the long running horror franchise that a long time ago was a comedy and now has had all the humour leached out of it. Um, I'd previously reviewed Scream from 2022, the fifth film in the series, and then Scream 6, and I found both to be very dry and humourless and really felt like the idea of a horror movie that was aware of itself and self referential and conscious of how um, film series and horror series shift and move the goalposts over the intervening years. That had been completely mined out. The intention had been with Scream 7 that it was going to retain the same creative team, but then Melissa Barrera, one of the main actors, voiced resistance to the genocide in Gaza, and she was fired by Paramount. Her co-star Jenna Ortega resigned in sympathy, as eventually did Christopher Landon, the intended writer-director. So Paramount restarted the whole project. They brought in Kevin Williamson, the franchise's creator, to co-write and direct for the first time, and Neve Campbell, who sat at the previous film because Paramount refused to pay her for her time sufficiently, as the new lead. And now Sidney Prescott, star of the original film, is living in a small town. She has a teenage daughter the same age as she was in the original film, and they have their own circle of friends, with the new killer appearing on the scene and posing as someone from the past who was apparently dead, and various characters interact in a series of interesting ways before the film comes to a climax and the credits appear. Um, it's better than the two previous films. I think that's probably the most generous I can be. I think the reviews for this new one have been quite poor because I think people are catching on to how mined out this series has become, that really only the first film is that good. Scream 2 has some good ideas and doesn't really know what to do with it further. And then after that, it's all downhill. This has some effective suspense sequences. It has some strong performances, although I can't say who these are from because that's a spoiler, and it's hard to talk about the film in any way without spoilers, regardless of how unenthusiastic I am about the story. But it's a perfectly adequate way to spend an hour and 55 minutes. It's just not particularly good. It's just not particularly energizing. The fact that it's been a box office hit is interesting because it shows that people will still just turn out to watch any old crap. And the fact that this has taken more in its opening weekend, or almost as much in its opening weekend, as the far superior 28 years later, The Bone Temple did in its entire run, is interesting. This film is also quite gory and bloodthirsty, more than I had expected. But it's ultimately just trying to keep the franchise going, just trying to carry on generating money. Um, the eventual concept of the film, in terms of why the new Ghostface killer is at large and what their plan is, I've already mostly forgotten. It's fairly complicated and unengaging. I think that you could do a lot more if you had, say, two competing ghost faces who represent each, two factions of the stab fandom who want to continue the franchise in their own mutually exclusive ways. So it's Ghostface versus Ghostface with the victims caught in the middle, and there's a lot of humor and satire you can generate from that, as well as the whodunit of neither Ghostface knows who the other one is, so even the killers don't know who the killers are. But instead, this is just plod, plod, turn the handle, crank out another predefined amount of horror movie. It's adequately made, it's passable. The behind the scenes stuff, I can understand putting people off quite a lot. But really, I don't think there's much to say for the film in general, and particularly carrying on.